October 14th, 2014, Xiaoying Li died. And now that it's the end of the case, you as jurors need to make a decision knowing what happened. And you must now ask yourself questions to find out what happened. Why did this event take place? Why did this tragic accident happen? And why is Xiaoying Li dead? You know, one thing to answer these questions, one thing that Miss Li died at no fault of her own, one thing, that it was the defendant driver who killed Miss Li. And knowing that he killed Miss Li, we must now make a decision. You heard at the beginning of this case, before anything else in jury selection, that there would be two issues that you as jurors must answer. One of liability and one of damages. But then right before this trial started, you heard the defendant concede liability, saying they 100% are responsible for the death of Miss Li. But now they're saying, no, we did this, and we want this to only be about damages. So now that it is about damages, you as jurors need to make a decision about how to rule on the facts, and how to rule about pain and suffering, and loss of parental guidance and support. And in order to make this decision, you must go back, look at the facts of this case, listen to what you heard, and you must also take into account what the defendant said in this case. Because what you heard in this case were two witnesses saying, of course Miss Li was dead. You heard from a police officer, Officer Helen Shen. You heard her come in here and say, I arrived at the scene 2 minutes after it took place. And when I arrived, I saw Miss Li under her car, under the defendant's car, and when I looked underneath, she was moaning. And then you also heard from the truck driver who was driving behind the defendant driver. And what did you hear him say? You heard him say, I saw the accident take place. I saw it unfold. I saw the defendant driver hit Miss Li in the torso, drag her for 6 feet until he came to a stop. And then I got out of my car. After I got out of my car, I knocked on the windshield, and when I looked under the car, after all of that, what did I see? I saw Miss Li moving. She was trying to get up. And now the defendant is trying to say these are so serious, such catastrophic injuries that she died instantly. Well, I thought we would agree or disagree on everything, but this is one thing we do agree on. These are catastrophic injuries that she suffered, but they can't have it both ways. They can't say, yes, we are responsible for these, but we're responsible so much so that we just killed her instantly. She didn't go through any pain, no suffering at all. But when you look at this testimony, you need to look at it through the lens of a report that we haven't spoken about it here yet. And this report is a report that was certified by a doctor, and what it really is a study in pain. Because this report I'm talking about is the autopsy report, and it goes through all of the injuries that Miss Li suffered right before her death. And if we take a look at this autopsy report, and I'm just going to highlight a few of the injuries here, you as jurors, when you're in the jury room, I suggest you go through it by yourself. But they're saying Miss Li died instantly. She was hit in the head, and that's why she died instantly. But if you look at this report, there are no impact injuries to her head. There are no fractures of her skull. But it goes on to say she broke every rib in her rib cage. Rachel Jacobs stood up here earlier and in her opening statement said blood pooled in her chest, and that's exactly what this report says. 300 cc's of blood in her chest. If you die instantly, your heart stops beating. But this woman had 300 cc's of blood. You heard from Officer Chen say that she heard a faint moan. Is there any doubt in your mind why you heard a faint moan? Of course not. She was drowning on her own blood. She was struggling to live. She couldn't breathe. And then you heard Mr. Pineda say she was dragged for 6 feet. Of course she had 40 plus internal fractures, broken both bones in her femur, the biggest bone in the body. And now they say, no pain, no suffering. Well, if we look at common sense and good judgment, what does it tell us? Common sense and good judgment tells us that of course she was in pain, of course Miss Lee was suffering, and of course she was conscious the entire time during it. But before we go on with pain and suffering, I want to talk about something far more important here, and that is the loss of parental care and guidance. Because to these children, to the children of Miss Lee, that is the most important thing to them. Because their mother was someone that gave them guidance, support, not just at the beginning of their life, but age-appropriate advice. You heard it from them throughout their entire life. And if we look at this testimony, look at what they said, you know them. But before we go into what they said, let's look at who Miss Lee was physically. Did she drink? No. Did she smoke? Absolutely not. You heard it from the testimony of her own children. And one thing we do know also is Mr. Ray Attorney, if he had one piece of evidence to show that she wasn't in good health before she died and didn't give any guidance to her children before she passed away, don't you think he would have told you? Of course he would have. But you did not hear that once through this testimony. But you also heard this a lot on the fact that Miss Lee was 90 years old before she died. And of course, that's something that is important to this case. But I suppose what Ms. Jacobs said in her opening statement is also true. Because there's 190, but there's also another 90. Because it's 190, somebody's senile, they can't think, they can't walk, they can't move, they can't take care of their personal hygiene. But it's a very different 90 when you heard about Miss Lee reading every day, reading the newspaper, talking to her children, walking around with bags, collecting bottles, going around New York City, walking around at the early hours of the morning. That's a very different 90. But now they say, of course, 90 years old is something that you need to take into account because she would have died instantly and her children got the support they needed before she died. But let's take a look at what these children said about her guidance and support, because they were up here and you heard it from them directly. Well, if you look at Patricia, her oldest daughter, you heard from Patricia and she told you something that I admit has nothing to do with this case, but you heard her talk about her Parkinson's disease, a disease. When she learned about it, she went to her mother first. She told her mother how she didn't know how she was going to get on. But it was Miss Lee, her mother, who told her, of course you could get through this. We had other family members go through this and got Patricia through this. And you also heard from Michael, from Alfred, about Sarah, who also couldn't be here. But you heard how important this woman was to them. You heard nothing other than how Miss Lee gave this guidance, gave this support. But the bottom line is this. The defendants came up here and they told you no pain and suffering, no parental guidance and support. And now they want a discount on this case. Well, no discount, no sympathy, that's not what we're asking for. We want you to take a look at the evidence and make a decision for yourselves. And they came up here and they asked for a number. They said no pain and suffering, $0. Well, if you look at the pain and suffering, we're going to suggest number 2 at the end of this case. But when you look at the pain and suffering, and we go through all of the injuries that we spoke about here before, and we see that she broke every bone in her rib cage, was choking on her own blood, faintly moaning, because that's all she could do. Is there any doubt that the only thing she was experiencing was pain and suffering? Of course not. And I'll tell you this. If this family walked into a store, saw on the front of the store an advertisement, and that advertisement said, "We'll give you $1 million. All you have to do is be hit by a car when you're 90 years old, be dragged for 6 feet, break every bone in your rib cage, both femurs broken, blood pumping still, all the while you're choking on your own blood Is there any doubt in your mind this family would say, absolutely not. I'll keep your $1 million. I'll take my health. Absolutely not. And I'll also tell you this. If this family could take any amount of money you award them and say, take it back and just give me my mom back, they would take that in a heartbeat. But ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you can't do that. You can't bring back their mom. Compensation is the only thing that could help bring back any sense of justice this family has. And that's why we're asking for $500,000 for Miss Lee's pain and suffering. But again, going to parental care and guidance, something that I said was more important than this pain and suffering. When you look at it, and look at the testimony of what these children said, you know this is more important. And you know Patricia, Michael, Alfred, Sarah all going to get a point when they're going to want to look to their mother. You know Patricia is eventually going to want to say, Mom, I need you. My Parkinson's is getting worse. I need somebody in my life that will be able to help me. Mom, I need you. She can ask the question, but she'll never get the response because her mom's not there. Her mom isn't there to guide her and give her the support she gave her during her whole life. And you know similar questions will be asked by Michael, by Alfred, by Sarah. They'll never get an answer. From no fault of their own, their mother isn't here anymore. And that's why we're asking for $500,000 individually for each of them in order to compensate for the loss of their parental guidance and support. Because what we're really asking you to do as jurors is to put a number on human life. And asking you to value a human life is a difficult thing. But when you look at Miss Lee, a life that matters, it isn't so difficult. Because what we're asking you to do is put a number on this life. And when you think about it, if you look at professional athletes, when you look at baseball players, basketball players, signing contracts for hundreds of millions of dollars, well, that's still a human life. But when you look at something that's not a human life, when you look at a Picasso, a Rembrandt, a Monet painting, selling at an auction house for $250 million, well, that's not even a human life. That's just paint on canvas. But this is a human life. This is one that mattered and mattered the most to these children. Now, when we stood up here at the beginning of our opening statement, we said we'd be asking for something. And we would be asking for 100% justice, and that's exactly what we're doing. And if you ever come to a point in this jury room when you have a dispute, I want you to remember this. The defendants admitted that they were at fault. They said they were 100% responsible for the death of Miss Lee. And now they want a discount. Well, no discount, no sympathy. That's not what we're asking for. We are just asking for justice and justice only. And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you may have realized this when we stood up here. We're young attorneys. This is our first trial. And it's something that you can tell is the most important thing to this family. Tell you, standing up here, I'm scared. I'm scared because I didn't convey how important this is to this family. And it is a huge responsibility. It is the biggest responsibility to this family. And that's why we're